performer, writer, producer, Tim Ferguson.
Anybody who knows my work will know that my biggest argument for learning how to write comedy, for reading The Cheeky Monkey, is that the symbol of drama has two masks. One of them's crying, I'm living in a caravan in Gosford. The other one is laughing, and the two of them together make drama. And that's my argument. My argument is the symbol that's been around for about 1,400 years, the symbol for drama. And if you want to write drama and you cannot identify or create comic material because you understand how it works, then you better hurry up, because all my students are learning, and they will replace you because I've told them to.
Yeah, films like Chopper, programs like Breaking Bad, they properly fuse the comedy with the drama.
Yeah, if you look at going further back, series like The Sopranos, there was always humor. If you look at what people are doing on TV now, Netflix is loaded with American and British crime drama that's always got humor. The Cheeky Monkey has created this weird legion of followers who can all speak the same comedy language to each other now, which is very exciting because they can work together and talk to each other about each other's scripts. So you can measure it against the principles that have worked since, Aristophanes was hanging around Athens saying, so it's a pretty funny play, this one. It opens with 10 minutes of farting. And you might be thinking, what are those things? How do those things work? Well, get a copy of The Cheeky Monkey. You can get it from your library. I'm not trying to sell you books. I've sold enough of them for it to have been worthwhile.
To get a beach house?
Yeah, you can get a beach house. In fact, if you write it, you get a beach house.
I think that's what people sometimes forget, that comedy by its nature is actually quite technical, and there are right ways and wrong ways to do it.
Yeah. When you find out what the wrong way is, because nobody laughs, you go, what? I would have thought the punchline first would be the best way to do it. You can do whatever you like. There's no rule. You might be able to put the punchline at the beginning. Dave Chappelle does in one of his jokes, the punchline of which I can't repeat here. But he says, so I've got a punchline that I wrote first, and I usually come up with the story later, and then later in the show he goes, so here's what he tells a story, and then the punchline turns up. So you can do that. There are no rules.
Well, you talk about Breaking Bad being a favorite show, and I cannot deal with talking to the legend without talking about one of my favorite shows, Don't Forget Your Toothbrush. Big and bold and live to air.
Live to air, studio audience of 400 people. If you've never seen Don't Forget Your Toothbrush, the idea was, well, I don't know what the idea was. It was Chris Evans in London who came up with it. But ostensibly, the entire audience was there to win a trip straight away to some glamorous location. But if they won, it would be London. If they didn't, they'd go to Lean Gather in Victoria or something.
A caravan.
So it all, it was all highly frivolous. One of the rules of thumb I had was nothing educational. I know kids are watching, but I don't want them to be thinking, oh God, here we go. He's going on, and don't forget to be careful with the environment. Or, don't eat too much sugar. Like, I don't want any of that stuff. But yeah, it was great fun. And all the games were deliberately outlandish, expensive, and very silly. One time we took over a whole motel, and in each room, we had a camera, a microphone pointed at the door in case it was opened by the contestant. So put a contestant in a car, and they would be driven down to the motel, and they'd be given instructions by their friend or partner in the studio saying, pulling a ball out of a Tats Lotto thing, saying, "Go to room 32. And the time we did it, there was a fire engine driver, I think, and he would run up to the third floor, open the door, and either be showered with feathers or jelly or baked beans or whatever, or cash. That's right, or cash. And then it would be, no, you've got to go down to number 11. And so we had this very healthy contestant running up and down for a couple of minutes. Totally stupid, but he walked away with money, and it was fun to watch. But inordinately expensive, because then you have to have a crew of 70 on site.
Incredible logistics.
Oh, yeah. At the time, Channel 9 were the only network that could even contemplate it, because they had an entertainment crew, a live entertainment crew that had been working on Hey Hey It's Saturday, The Footy Show, hosted by Eddie Maguire, and something else. It was a live, that was us, a live entertainment show. So when it came to saying, okay, we're going to get someone in a helicopter and they're going to be throwing pizzas at a apartment building, and if you're living in the apartment building, you catch a pizza, you get $5,000. Sound okay? They go, yeah, right. So, okay. How tall's the building? Like, nobody would stop the meeting.
No,
was that a crane? I think it was a crane. The idea was to get everybody in Australia playing, and it was, again, just risk-taking television that may not please everyone, but at least they had to say, well, that was a pretty good effort.
I remember it very fondly, and it was, even though it was seat of the pants, it was very tightly planned and choreographed.
Same thing, the whole production crew from EP, Peter Wynn, down through Craig Camel and Rob Brearley, and then a whole bunch of other segment producers were all match fit. Although I remember at the first production meeting, Winnie, as he's called, went to the whiteboard and wrote spend, spend, spend on the whiteboard. And he said, that's how this show's going to work. And because I'd only been really making TV in the UK, I thought, oh, yeah, of course. But, television was undergoing dramatic changes. So spend, spend, spend is not something they usually say at production meetings anymore. Spend our way out of any problem. That seems perfectly reasonable.
Also in TV, Unreal TV. You co-wrote and hosted a series, 12 one-hour specials.
That's great to hear people talk about Unreal TV. Yeah, it just went, we did 8 series of that, working with Mark Gracie and Steve Vizard's company, turning these things out that started with Unreal ads, which was just me on a couch saying, here's another ad. Then after that, we thought, okay, do you want to do something just a little bit more exciting? And that's when we started to have a little bit more fun in terms of the way it was written and the level it was pitched at. And of course, we had those late night ones, which were called Pink Label, which was basically, 6 games from Japan and that sort of thing. But you don't really get any thanks for doing clip shows of those entertainment from overseas. But it was worth doing because I got to work with the best joke writers who certainly I knew about in Australia, which were Mark O'Toole, who has gone on to produce shows like Black Comedy.
Toolman's a bit of a legend.
Doug McLeod.
Doug is
Oh, yeah, and Doug McLeod, who was
yes.
quite amazing. Catherine Devaney, who was a great, complete left-of-centre thinker. And working with those people and a fun crew meant all of a sudden we went from, so, wow, you think that's interesting, see what they're doing in Germany, to much funnier introductions. One of my favourite outs for clips where we just really didn't know what it was would just be me raising an eyebrow and saying, fascinating. Because sometimes that's all you can say, but you call it fascinating. It was usually an elevation beyond its level.
Yeah, draw your own conclusion.
Yeah, draw your own conclusion. There was one German one. I was in hospital getting pumped with steroids because that's what I do. You can see I'm huge. And I was there, 3 days getting pumped with steroids for my tiny little brain. And there was a Mexican male nurse who came up to me and said, with his Mexican accent that I can't replicate, "You're the Unreal TV guy." Now, this was 10 years after it had been done, and I thought, oh, wow, you watched Unreal TV? He said, that was my favourite show. For years, I loved that show. It was just the funniest show. And he told me one where he said, my favourite line comes from when you had the three guys on a German TV show, each wearing a spandex suit with the buttocks cut out, who were going to have enemas. And once they had an enema, they had to sit on a toilet, and the one who held everything in the longest was going to be the winner. But the thing that was really funny about it all was the breathless, almost sport-like commentary of the Germans. Das sind keine Gemeinschafter, sie gluten heißt, and you'd hear in the background, ding, 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 as these guys are pulling a variety of faces. And then the first word, oh, ist nichts außen, then the next one, oh, and you'd hear it all. And then the third one went, but the young Mexicans say, I loved your punchline to it all, which was bronze, bronze, bronze for German. And I'd forgotten that joke, which I think was a Mark O'Toole gag. But bronze, bronze, bronze for Germany, which is, they don't call it lights entertainment for nothing.
Or you may have inadvertently introduced shit TV.
Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, that's one thing to be happy with.
It was interesting that before you were talking about sitcoms and single camera sitcoms, because before cable was huge, you created, co-wrote and co-produced Shock Jock, a sitcom with Mark Gracie and Chris Thompson.
Yes, Shock Jock was so much fun. The idea was it's the 1980s and we're in Shock Jock Radio Land. So the characters were, there was always one who was a hard right-winger, but the main character was a guy called Barry Gold, who was causing trouble by making sense, upsetting the listeners, because occasionally he would say something that seemed valid. It was good fun to be writing effectively a political satire in Radioland, because God knows they're still up for parody. In fact, what am I doing here? I should be writing a new series of Shock Jock. They're just as right-wing, just as knee-jerk, just as sparrow-minded.
As we're talking, I've actually got AI in the background writing a new series of Shock Jock.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad you're doing it, because I'm just I've got too much on. Yeah, it was a great experience. Mark Gracie, who I've worked with ever since he was promoter for the Doug Anthony AllStars in the very early 90s. He was also promoting the Jim Rose Circus, just to give you a hint of the scale of the way Mark thinks, which is always go big, go loud, go large. Working with him on that series and with Chris Thompson, who's a gifted screenwriter of movies and TV, was just a gift. All of a sudden, I could hang around those two and look like I too understand how it works. So while I had my learning wheels on, they were quite experienced in all of the dark arts of satirical TV. So it was a great place to train with two of the smartest human beings I know.
And an education for you, as you say, for film, which you branched into in the early 2000s. You co-directed the feature film Spin Out.
Yeah, at that AWG conference I was griping about before, I met Edwina Exton, who was interested in writing comedy. And so we thought, oh, well, we caught up for a coffee, and she had a bunch of ideas for features, and so did I, and we both landed on the Bachelor Spinster Ball idea as being a very Australian story, and full of young people, sex, booze, and as Edwina quickly realized when she went to one, I think out in Shepparton, and came back, she said, they've got cars, and they've got a lot of them. No deniliquin, she said, they've got cars. They've got hundreds of utes, and they all chuck circles, and they do it for prize money in an arena, and after that, there was no other thinking required in terms of choosing a film idea. I liked it because I thought this is going to give the Australian film industry the shits, because it's not about a caravan in Gosford. It's young people, and they're having fun and screwing up in their own exciting ways. But given the time I've lived in the country, when I was younger, it was about people that I knew. I knew the heart of young people in the bush with only one party a year. And so it really appealed to me. And of course, Edwina loved the idea of, this party. We didn't realize when we started that writing a party movie is as difficult as it gets, because not only do you have, a main character who's got to get from A all the way down to Z, but you've got to do it with 29 other speaking characters. So it becomes a real playing checkers and chess at the same time, upside down in a submarine. But again, a great place to learn how to do it. And Sony Australia came on board and said, we can distribute that. And they hadn't distributed much Australian products. They usually only focus on one a year, because it's a monumental ask for a distributor with quite a small but very effective team. And once that happened, then the picture started to change very swiftly, and all of a sudden, oh, hang on, we really are making a movie. And it was exciting to work with the top end of town, helping us put it all together and get it on 250 screens around Australia, which is an uncommon feat in itself. But it was based upon the sense of community that people in the country have, that people in the city don't have so much. So if you live in Sydney, you can have a sense of community, but it only goes 2 miles. And outside of that, it's all wild. In the country, growing up in a little town called Brainy in the mountains of New South Wales, you know everybody. So when they say, community, it's like, oh yeah, I know their names. I know where they live, and they know what I'm doing. It's a different way of looking at life that people in urban centres will never get to appreciate because they don't experience it.
You've done quite a lot of film as well. You co-wrote The Barbecue. You appeared as yourself in That's Not My Dog, and you're gearing up for another film currently, are you not?
Yeah. Well, I've spent the last 3 years feverishly writing with everybody saying, where are you? What are you doing? And feverishly putting together a script, which is it's going to alarm some people, but it's supposed to. Why make a comedy where people go, oh, that's nice?
Can you give anything away?
I can only give away the fact that it's not going to be, that Radio National will want to do one interview about it, but after that they'll be dealing with the controversy. It's going to spark controversy.
I see.
But in a funny way, in a way where people go, it's funny, but it's very serious. Because I've got multiple sclerosis, which is the way I can pronounce it, not you, dear listener. Because I've got multiple sclerosis, because why stop at one?
Mm-hmm.
It means that I get underestimated, a bit like elbow. People underestimate someone in a wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
When, as I advocate for employment for people who have, all sorts of disabilities, being underestimated is part of the bonus. Because all really with MS that makes me different is I'm sitting down.
Yes.
And I'm either sitting down or I'm lying down. Apart from that, I can write a movie. I can sit with Mark Gracie and the two of us can put our brains together as we have for a long time and direct and then chop it up and get it out there. It's, I think it's important having this kind of disability, which is very visible because it's got a wheelchair attached. I mean, look at this.
Oh, round we go, yes.
Yeah. It's got a wheelchair attached. I think it's very important to show that people with disabilities can pretty well do anything that everybody else is doing, except there is usually one thing a person with disabilities can't do. If they're deaf, they can't hear. If they're blind, they can't see. If they've got cerebral palsy, their dancing is terrible.
What about if you're
but
stupid?
Their brains are still working. If you're stupid, you just call Screen Queensland. They'll be able to help you.
Okay. Now, with the multiple sclerosis, you announced it in 2010 on Good News Week, but you experienced symptoms for quite some time prior. Why was that?
Oh, yeah. There were always weird symptoms, John. That would be buzzing and rattling or numbness or things just suddenly, not working, and then they'd fix themselves. It was only years later that I found out it's called relapsing remitting. This is how on top of it I am. So it would relapse, so it would come back, and then it would remit. Like, where did it go? And being young and male and very busy as a Doug Anthony AllStar, I just ignored it. Then when I was 32, I think I found out what it was, and I thought, wow, I'm really going to have to turn up the ignoring. And so I kept ignoring it. And also I thought, wow, I'm working on national television. There's no point in scaring everybody when most of the time everything's fine. It's something that a lot of people who have what they call invisible disabilities have to decide is, do you want to tell everybody or not?
No.
You tell everybody, that can change your prospects for employment, or you could scare everybody when, you don't have to. So I don't advise people one way or the other. But yeah, for 10 years, I thought, I'll just sit on it. It was only when I had a walking stick and people kept asking me about that I thought, well, I better come up with something else, which was the best way to end the conversation is to say, I've got multiple sclerosis. You'd be amazed how quickly people will change the topic.
Yes.
Whereas normally if they say, why have you got that walking stick, and you give an excuse, they want to stand around for 10 minutes talking about it. Just tell them you've got a severe disabling condition and they're gone. It's like, wow.
Well, you poke fun at it in some of your shows. One was called Carry a Big Stick and another Fast Life on Wheels.
The great thing about doing shows about, disability, MS specifically, but disability at large, is that as soon as you're on stage, everybody's a little bit uncomfortable, which is great for making them laugh because they're already a little bit nervous. So the amygdala in their brain is already going beep, 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 run, fear, flight. And of course, my shows are designed to be approaching disability in a way that nobody else would. We did one called Disability Rules at in the Adelaide Festival, and I think we went to Brisbane, and the idea of that show was, well, you've come here thinking I'm saying disability rules, man, give us a shot. But in fact, it was a long list of rules for the audience in how they should deal with and understand disabilities.
It's very valuable because it is a conversation ender.
Yeah, straight away. It's like, But there were some handy hints like disabled bathrooms are there for people with disabilities, and of course also for drug use and sex. If you're not using it for those three things, get out. Most people would say, well, it's quite valid.
Have you made up some good stories about it?
Oh, yeah. There's plenty of stuff to invent about disability. Some of the stories that we put into shows are, of course, not true, but well worth telling anybody because they don't have a message apart from whatever is implicit in the story. I think it's important to use humor because it's one of the bullets in my gun.
Yes.
Because it immediately shows people that there must be something else going on. That, disability, you meet anybody who's blind, the first time they mention the fact they have any vision impairment is usually in a joke. Because they're used to it. Everybody else might be a bit nervous about the working guide dog that's with them. But for the person themselves, they've been living with it. It's not as if they're going to be touchy. Even in a comedy venue, they see a comedian who's making a joke that involves, a blind character or something. They're not or a wheelchair character, they're not going to immediately be offended. It's usually people who don't have a disability who'll be offended on their behalf.
Yes.
In which case they should mind their own bloody business.
When someone meets you for the first time, would you prefer they mention it or not?
Oh, I don't mind. Usually if they do mention it, I'll say, yeah, sure, it's MS, but that's the least interesting thing about me.
Right.
And just, if you want to ask me about it because you've got an auntie who's just been diagnosed, sure, we can talk about it. I can give her my 5 cents worth. And most people with a disability are much the same. Everybody has obstacles in their life, and so my obstacle is different.
It is indeed the least interesting thing about you, and I haven't even covered your run at politics or the Rocky Horror Show or the AllStars are around in some form. Because you've been so generous with your time, I do just have to ask you, it's claimed that you have the third largest Star Wars toy collection in the Southern Hemisphere.
Is that right? Who counts those things?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Probably Star Wars nerds.
Yeah, it's comparatively large, but and I know there are a couple of guys in South Africa who have more toys than, even billionaires should have. But a long time collecting, starting when it was really uncool. The third big Star Wars movie had just come out.
Presupposing that it's cool now.
Oh, yeah. So it was like 1984 or something, and it was really uncool. But I thought, gee, these toys are unlike any other toys that anyone has ever made. They were these big, unlikely spaceship-sized things. They weren't Tonka toys, and they weren't just little action figures. And I thought, that's really interesting. That's quite daring. Oh, I like that one too, and I like that one too. And everybody was giving them away because they're quite ungainly. Having a big AT-AT in your house is a 3-foot-tall dog-shaped robot. And so I just kept scooping them up, putting them under the house until it became kind of out of my control. So it was born not of a collector's passion where I thought, oh, this is going to be valuable. I just thought it should be celebrated that someone had made this ridiculous thing that no child should be allowed to touch. If you're a young person, you should go to, I don't know, what is it, Kmart or Target or one of those big stores, see what are the most popular toys, what are the kids buying right now, watch the prices, and when it looks like it's about to be taken from the shelves because it's not selling anymore, buy it. Because one thing's certain, that the kids who are crazy about, say, Pokemon, which was a thing in the 90s, will love it, and then their parents will throw out the cards. We just need room under the house and somewhere that's rat-proof. But apart from that...
Have you got George Lucas under the house as well?
George Lucas, I wouldn't let George Lucas under my house. What is he thinking? I mean, how could he culturally appropriate in such a fashion? He was not born on a distant planet far away. So how could he possibly ever give voice to a character like Luke Skywalker? It's outrageous.
Well, I think in this day and age, you just say anything and it causes offense.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, don't worry about offending people. If you're a young comedian, don't worry about offending people. There are, 9 billion people on the planet? Plenty more where they came from. So long as you're not deliberately setting out to pick on someone outside your own social strand for the simple reason that they're outside your social strand, be it in terms of gender or race or ethnicity or sexual proclivities, any words, any letters from the alphabet. So long as you're not doing it to injure people, say whatever the hell you like. Otherwise, what are you doing? Yeah, okay, so I was on Tinder the other night. Oh, man, you can believe it. Take the risk that you will tread on someone's toes, because chances are they've bought a ticket, as they would with Jimmy Carr, to have their toes trodden on. I went to see Dave Chappelle at Homebush, 18,000 people. And at one point he said, oh, well, I'm going to have to do some offensive humor. And the crowd cheered.
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, people would have seen Barry Humphries as Les Patterson because they wanted to be offended. Yeah.
That's part of the thing, and it still is. the idea, as Susan Proven said the other day, of punching up and punching down is kind of true, unless you've got something funny to say about it. I don't approve of punching up and punching down as a rule of thumb, simply because somebody spoke about a joke that punches down at, what was it, Sweden. And the reason why I don't think it could ever be punching down is Sweden's doing pretty well status-wise. By saying that comedian is punching down at Sweden is saying, so that comedian is above Sweden, is better than Sweden, and is laughing at Swedes in spa baths or whatever it was. So Susan was sort of half right about that. There's always a joke to be made about a topic that people most of the time won't talk about on stage because they're a bit scared. I was on Radio National being interviewed by Patricia Cavallis. She's a great interviewer. She hosts Q&A, or hosted Q&A.
Or she did until it was cancelled, yes.
Yeah, now she's doing afternoon news. And she was asking me about, comedy and what's offensive and what's not. And I said, well, you can make jokes about homeless people. Oh, well, I don't think so. I said, well, I'll tell you one. This one's by Jasper Carrot, I think, where he said, I've been going out with this homeless girl. I've got to say, it's fantastic because we can have dinner, go to a movie, then I can drop her off anywhere. Now, of course, the real butt of that joke is he's a terrible boyfriend.
Yes.
It's not mocking homelessness. It's just pointing out the truth, which is, even though it's absurd, yes, you could drop them off anyway because they have no home. But I don't think it's really where the joke's point is. It's how you deal with a topic and who is the butt of this. And clearly in that joke, the boyfriend is the one behaving badly, doing the wrong thing. And guess who's going to be dumped?
So in the right circumstances, you'd have no issue with an able-bodied person making a joke about a wheelchair.
No, I mean, what's the difference? They'll get there eventually. So I don't take things personally when I know, oh, you don't like wheelchairs or walkers. Okay. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. And there you are, you're cooked. It's important that comedians are allowed to be comedians. And yes, we all screw up. Any good comedian is going to screw up. They are going to say and do the wrong thing because it's a lifetime of risk. And I've screwed up. I've said and done the wrong things, but that's part of being on the edge, part of pushing the boundaries, part of doing what the audience wants by leaping out, taking the risks, doing things that nobody would do. And occasionally it goes wrong because a rule of thumb is nobody's ever done it before. So you just don't know.
How do you identify that you said the wrong thing?
Oh, yeah. Usually afterwards when someone says that was too far or that was stupid or what was the point of that?
Right.
And usually if it's because there's no point to it, that is a way of realizing this is where it went wrong. If you really want to, and that's usually from improvised stuff, if you really want to tread on toes, it's a good idea to know why. So if you get hauled up before, the shock jocks on radio, you've got an answer to say, no, clearly what that joke is about is ... So it's about having your intention right. If the intent is right, the impact is not your problem. Whereas sometimes you just go blah, 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 and furthermore, blah, blah, stamp, stamp, stamp. Anybody watching would say he's quite an annoying person. This Ferguson, he's quite is quite opinionated and annoying. Fine, that's how I move the needle. But I bet you at one point in the interview you've gone, oh, that's not a bad point.
I've done that several times indeed. And I do have to thank you so much for your generosity with your time and with your thoughts.
Thank you, John. Oh, this has been a hoot. Thanks, everyone.
If you're enjoying these, please subscribe, please like, please comment. It all helps me make more of these, and there are plenty of favorites to get through. Bye.